Every time you speak, you give the world a map to your mind. Your fears, your ambitions, your insecurities, all exposed, word by word. You think talking makes you strong. It doesn't. It makes you visible. And the visible man is the easiest to target. Machiavelli didn't admire charm. He admired control. And control begins with silence. Not because you have nothing to say, but because you know the cost of saying it. In a world full of desperate voices trying to be heard, the one who holds his tongue becomes a mystery. And mystery breeds fear, respect, and power. Silence isn't emptiness, it's tactical invisibility. While others expose themselves with words, you'll learn how to cloak yourself in silence. Not passive silence, but calculated, cold silence. The kind that unnerves, the kind that commands. In this video, you'll discover the 9 deadly scenarios where speaking is surrender, and silence is survival. Because the man who speaks less sees more, and the man who reveals nothing can never be controlled. Anger makes men impulsive. Silence makes them dangerous. Anger is the easiest emotion to exploit. Your enemies want you to lose control, because the second you do, you become predictable, visible, and easily manipulated. That's why weak men explode. They shout, send texts they regret, and make promises they can't uphold. And after all that noise, what's left? They're exposed, exhausted, and no longer feared. But a Machiavellian mind treats anger like a weapon, with a safety lock. Not because the emotion is bad, but because it's valuable. Rage is power, when used correctly. The truly dangerous man isn't the one who yells. It's the one who smiles while calculating. The one who absorbs disrespect, betrayal, and mockery, and says nothing. Because he's not reacting. He's deciding. When you get angry, silence gives you 2 things: clarity and control. Clarity to see the situation without the fog of emotion. Control to choose the most devastating response, one that leaves no room for retaliation. In the silence, your enemy gets nervous. They expect shouting, retaliation, emotional chaos. Instead, they're met with a cold void. No reaction, no explanation, no weakness to feed on. This silence is not passive. It's active restraint. It says, I heard you. I felt it. But you are not worth my explosion. I don't settle things with emotion. I settle them with precision. In silence, you keep your power. You create unpredictability. You force others to wonder, what is he thinking? What will he do? That uncertainty is more terrifying than any outburst, because now they don't know how or when you'll strike. They just know it's coming. Machiavelli would advise this: let anger fuel you, but never lead you. Let it sharpen your decisions, not hijack them. The moment you speak in rage, you lower your position. But when you say nothing, you ascend. You separate yourself from the impulsive. You transform from emotional to untouchable. So next time the fire rises in your chest, don't open your mouth. Close your lips, open your eyes, and let your silence build the weapon they'll never see coming. Lions don't announce the hunt. They just kill. When you're winning, stay silent. Because success makes people jealous, powerful, threatened. And the more you talk about your victories, the more you paint a target on your back. Machiavelli understood this truth. Visibility invites attack. When you speak of your accomplishments, you feed the envy of the mediocre. You awaken enemies who would have stayed asleep. You alert rivals who now want to sabotage your rise. Why give them the map? Let them wonder. Let them guess. Let them think you're lucky, while you move with intent behind the scenes. Because the man who wins silently builds something far more dangerous than recognition. He builds mystique. Silence, when winning, does three things. It protects you. No one can strike what they can't define. Silence keeps your position hidden, your moves obscured, and your power intact. It amplifies your strength. People start whispering about you. How did he do it? Why is he always ahead? You become a legend, not because of what you say, but because of what you withhold. It keeps you focused. Bragging leads to complacency. Talking feeds ego. Silence keeps you sharp, disciplined, and hungry. The moment you start celebrating too loudly is the moment you stop evolving. And in Machiavelli's world, if you're not evolving, you're falling behind. Let your wins speak for themselves. Let others explain your success while you say nothing. Because while they're talking about you, you're already planning your next move. And if someone challenges you while you're ahead, don't argue. Don't justify. Silence is the loudest message. You are not competition. Silence while winning isn't humility. It's strategy. It keeps your empire protected while you expand it. Machiavelli didn't believe in sharing the formula. He believed in staying 10 steps ahead, while everyone else was still figuring out what just happened. So when you're winning, resist the urge to shine a spotlight on yourself. Stay cold. Stay quiet. Let your enemies think you've peaked. Then crush them with your next silent move. Don't confront them. Don't explain. Just disappear. When someone betrays you, your first instinct will be emotional. Rage, heartbreak, confrontation. You'll want to scream. You'll want answers. Don't. That's exactly what they expect. That's what gives them power. Machiavelli would never waste energy on traitors. Why? Because betrayal is never a mistake. It's a decision. And once someone makes that decision, your words won't change anything. But your silence? That changes everything. You don't owe them closure. You don't owe them a reaction. You owe yourself distance and powerful silence. Because when you vanish without a word, you do three brutal things. You deny them importance. Confrontation gives them the spotlight. Silence makes them irrelevant. It says, you weren't even worth a response. You trigger their guilt. Words can be argued, but silence, it haunts. They replay what they did in their mind because they don't know how you'll retaliate, or if you even will. You keep your leverage. By saying nothing, you remain unreadable. They don't know if you're plotting revenge or if you simply stopped caring. Either way, you've won. The betrayed man who screams looks weak. The betrayed man who smiles and walks away, terrifying. Your silence sends a message deeper than words ever could. You lost access. You lost me. And now, you're on your own. Machiavelli would advise this. Never chase closure. Never beg for honesty. Never give someone the satisfaction of your pain. Let your silence punish them far more than your anger ever could. It's not about forgiveness or revenge. It's about power. And the one who walks away first, without a word, holds it. Because when you disappear quietly, you force them to feel every inch of the distance. No explanation, no drama, just absence. And absence, when done right, is the loudest act of war. So the next time someone betrays you, remember, don't speak, don't react, don't explain. Just go silent. Let the silence echo, and let them drown in it. The louder the room, the more power silence holds. In every group, people talk to prove something: status, intelligence, dominance. They interrupt each other. They overshare. They compete for validation through noise. But the person who speaks the least, the one who sits back, watches, and listens, That's the one everyone starts to notice and fear. Machiavelli understood the power of the quiet observer. The man who speaks little controls his image. The man who listens controls information. When everyone else is talking, they're showing their hand, their fears, their goals, their alliances, their insecurities. And you're collecting intelligence. You learn who's weak, who's trying too hard, who's lying, who's desperate for approval. While they reveal everything, you reveal nothing. That's power. Because in a room full of noise, silence becomes a signal that you're not emotionally attached, that you don't need to impress anyone, that you're measuring, calculating, and possibly planning. Your silence makes people uneasy. They start over-explaining around you. They begin to second-guess themselves. They fear what you might be thinking. You gain control without saying a word. Machiavelli would say, "To master power, master perception." And nothing shapes perception more than silence. In group settings, every sentence you speak is a card played. Hold your cards. Let them play theirs first. Let them reveal themselves. Let them burn out in their need to be heard. You're not there to join the noise. You're there to study the battlefield before the first strike. And when you do speak, say little, but say what cuts. Your words will carry weight, because your silence already commanded respect. Never forget, the man who speaks constantly is searching for power, but the man who says nothing is letting power come to him. So when everyone else is speaking, stay quiet, watch, listen, learn. Because in a world of talkers, the listener becomes the most dangerous one in the room. The moment you defend yourself, you shrink. The moment you stay silent, you rise above. Public attacks are never just about words. They're designed to trigger your ego. Someone mocks you, insults you, or challenges you in front of others, hoping you'll respond emotionally. Why? Because your reaction gives them relevance. It puts them on your level. And worse, it shows that you're affected. That's exactly where most people lose the game. They defend themselves, explain, retaliate. And just like that, the attacker wins. Not with truth, but with control of your attention. But Machiavelli knew this. Power is not in winning arguments. Power is in refusing to step down to the level of fools. Silence in this moment is not cowardice. It's command. Because when you don't respond, several things happen at once. You shift the focus. The crowd stops looking at the mocker and starts watching you. How will you respond? Why are you so calm? Your silence becomes tension, and tension is power. You make them look desperate. The more they attack, the more they seem obsessed with you. The more you stay still, the more composed and superior you appear. You protect your position. A king doesn't argue with a jester. He observes, smiles faintly, and lets the room decide who holds real power. In the moment of public challenge, words are bait. Reacting emotionally is stepping into the trap. But silence makes the room uncomfortable. For them, it says, "You are beneath response. You haven't earned my words. I am calculating, not reacting." Machiavelli would advise, use silence as your shield and time as your blade. Let the fool speak. Let him gather the crowd. Then, when it matters, strike in a way that ends it all, without ever having to raise your voice. Because the most terrifying man in the room isn't the one who argues. It's the one who lets others burn themselves trying to provoke him, and never once breaks his stillness. So when you're mocked publicly, don't play the game. Stay silent, stand tall, and let your absence of reaction become the loudest display of power in the room. Never reveal what they think you don't know. That ignorance is your weapon, When you hold information others don't, especially when they lie, manipulate, or deceive, your silence becomes a loaded gun. The truth gives you power, but silence gives you leverage. Most people can't help themselves. They find out something and feel the urge to expose it, prove they're right, confront the liar, or win the argument. But that need to speak is emotional, and emotion gives away your advantage. Machiavelli would never waste truth on confrontation. He'd observe. Let them build their web. Let them lie again and again, while he watches quietly, memorizing every thread. Because once they think you're unaware, they act with false confidence. They expose more. They dig deeper. They entangle themselves in their own arrogance. Your silence gives them rope. Your timing gives you victory. When you know the truth but say nothing, three powerful things happen. You stay in control. You choose when and if to act. The element of surprise remains yours. You increase their mistake. Their confidence grows. So does their recklessness. And the damage they do to themselves becomes irreversible. You hold all the cards. They think they're ahead. They think they're winning. Until one move, silent, cold, final, crushes them with truth they never saw coming. Machiavelli would say, "Never interrupt an enemy while he is making a mistake." Truth is only powerful when delivered at the perfect moment, when it dismantles their position completely. If you reveal it too soon, you warn them. If you reveal it in anger, you lose control. But if you stay silent and wait, you bury them with their own lies. So when you know something others don't speak. Let them believe they're clever. Let them act bold. Let them keep going. Because your silence isn't ignorance. It's a trap. And when the time is right, your truth won't be spoken in anger. It'll be executed with precision. And in that moment, their collapse will look like destiny. But you'll know. It was your silence that built it. The most dangerous thing you can do near power is try to impress it. When you're in the presence of someone more powerful, whether it's a superior, a gatekeeper, or a person with influence, most people start performing. They talk too much. They try to prove their worth. They reveal their entire personality, hoping for approval. And just like that, they become small, not because they are weak, but because they made themselves loud. Machiavelli would never flatter power. He would observe it. Because true influence isn't earned through noise. It's earned through mystery, composure, and restraint. When you're around power, silence becomes your armor. It shows discipline. Powerful people don't respect desperation. They respect control. When you speak only when necessary, you signal confidence. You don't need to be heard. You choose to be heard. It creates intrigue. If you don't rush to speak, to prove, to perform, you become unpredictable. They start wondering what you're thinking. Why are you so composed? What do you know that others don't? It flips the dynamic. By not chasing validation, you create subtle authority. You're not seeking approval. You're evaluating quietly. And that reverses the power dynamic more than any compliment ever could. Machiavelli knew that speaking too much near the throne invites death, not just political, but social. Loose words reveal ambition. Too much honesty sparks insecurity. Too much familiarity kills mystery. But the man who stays silent in the presence of power, who observes, listens, nods, and speaks only when needed, that man stays unreadable. And unreadable people are feared, respected, and remembered. So when you're near those who hold status, wealth, connections, or influence, say less. Don't brag. Don't flatter. Don't overshare. Let your silence signal self-possession. Let your presence do the talking. Because in a world of beggars and performers, the man who doesn't ask to be seen becomes the one they can't ignore. And when power starts to respect your silence, that's when it begins to gravitate toward you. The most powerful move under surveillance is stillness. When people are watching you, whether it's enemies waiting for your mistake, allies trying to read your intentions, or the public observing your rise, every word you say becomes ammunition. Every sentence is dissected. Every reaction is studied. Every explanation is archived. This is where most people crumble. They try to clarify, justify, or perform. They become too visible, too available, too easy to read. Machiavelli knew that the watched man must become unreadable, not through lies, through silence. Because when you say nothing, when you make no sudden moves, when you give them nothing to work with, you take control of the narrative without saying a word. Here's why silence under observation is lethal. It creates paranoia. They don't know what you're thinking. They can't tell if you're planning, hiding, or simply unbothered. Uncertainty creates fear, and fear gives you space. It protects your strategy. Every move you don't reveal is a move they can't prepare for. Your silence becomes a shield behind which your real power grows. It builds mystique. When people watch but don't understand, they project. They overthink. They assume you're stronger than you are because they can't see your weaknesses. Machiavelli would say, "If you must be watched, give them shadows, not substance." The more they watch you and get nothing, the more frustrated they become. They start exposing themselves. They reveal their intent. They make moves trying to pull a response out of you. And that's when you strike. Not with words, but with outcomes. Because when you're being watched, you don't feed curiosity. You starve it. You become a mirror. They see what they want to see, and nothing more. And while they're distracted by your silence, you build power quietly in the background. So remember this: when eyes are on you, do less, say less, reveal nothing. Let them look, let them wonder, let them talk, because the watched man who stays silent becomes the myth. And myths are untouchable. The man who reveals his plan gives others the power to destroy it. When people ask you what you're planning, what's next, what your goals are, what you're working on, it may seem harmless, but understand this: every question about your future is an attempt to map your mind. Once they know what you're building, they can prepare for it, block it, or worse, steal it. Machiavelli would never hand over his blueprint, because visibility invites interference, and early exposure kills momentum. You might think sharing your plans earns trust. It doesn't. It earns scrutiny. And the more people know, the more you're boxed in by their expectations, doubts, and manipulations. Your silence here is not secrecy, it's protection. Here's what silence gives you when asked about your next move: freedom of execution. When no one knows what you're doing, you can change course at any moment, without judgment, without resistance. Protection from sabotage. The fewer people who know your intentions, the fewer who can ruin them. Jealousy often comes disguised as advice. Keep your vision guarded. Power through unpredictability. Unpredictable people are hard to control. When no one can anticipate your next step, they can't prepare defenses. Silence doesn't mean you have nothing planned. It means you're playing above the table while building beneath it. If someone keeps pressing, smile and deflect. I've got a few things in motion. I like to move quietly. Let them guess. Let them speculate. Never let them confirm. Machiavelli would say, "A man with a known plan is a man with a known weakness." When they know where you're going, they'll wait there to stop you. But when your silence cloaks your path, every step becomes a surprise attack. So when you're asked about your next move, say nothing real. Speak in fog, act in silence, and strike in clarity. Let your results reveal your ambition. Let your enemies learn too late what you were building, because by the time they figure it out, it's already done. You've now walked through 9 situations where silence isn't just smart, it's lethal. Each moment was a trap for the average man, each situation a test. And most fail because they speak when they should have stayed silent. But you're not most men. The world teaches you to be loud, to defend yourself, to explain. They say, speak your mind, express your truth, don't let anyone walk over you. But that advice is made for the emotional, the predictable, the weak. Machiavelli would laugh at it, because in his world, the real world, the one who speaks too soon loses power before the game even begins. Let's be clear. Silence is not submission. It's not passivity. It's not weakness. It's control. The man who can hold his tongue when insulted, who can remain calm when angry, who doesn't boast when winning. That man is not afraid. He is calculating. Look again at each situation. When you're publicly insulted, silence protects your image. You don't lower yourself. You rise above. When you're angry, silence is emotional mastery. Anyone can lash out. Only the strong can hold back and plan. When you're winning, silence shows you're not addicted to validation. It tells the world, I don't need applause. I play for results. When everyone else is speaking, you listen. You gather intelligence. They reveal everything. You reveal nothing. When you're mocked or challenged, silence is dominance. You don't argue with clowns. You let the court decide who the king is. When you're betrayed, silence is the slow blade. Don't announce your revenge. Execute it when they've forgotten they owe you a debt. When you know the truth others don't, you don't expose it. You wait. You let them keep lying, because the longer they lie, the more fatal your truth becomes. When you're in the presence of power, silence is respect, not for them, but for yourself. You don't need to perform. You are not a jester. You're the future threat they don't see coming. And when you're being watched, silence is a shield. The more they look, the less they learn. You become a myth, because they can't read what you never say. All 9 moments share one lesson. Silence isn't the absence of action. It's the concealment of it. When you hold your words, you don't lose presence. You gain mystery. You become unpredictable, unreadable, dangerous. This is why the loud are rarely feared. They show their hand. They react. They reveal weakness in every word. But the silent man, he is feared. Because you don't know what he's thinking. You don't know when he'll strike. You don't even know if you've already lost. This is the Machiavellian edge. In war, the first to speak often dies. In power, the loudest voice gets challenged. In life, the man who cannot shut his mouth is the easiest to destroy. So understand this. Every time you choose silence, you're not backing down. You're buying time. You're watching the field. You're building leverage. You're writing the ending while they're busy talking in chapter 1. And when it's time to speak, you don't speak to be understood. You speak to end things. Your silence makes your words surgical. Not noise, execution. Machiavelli would tell you, the man who holds his words holds his fate. The world is watching, listening, waiting to misinterpret, twist, and exploit your speech. So why hand them your weapons? Let them wonder what you're thinking. Let them feel uneasy in your presence. Let them reveal themselves, expose themselves, destroy themselves, while you observe from the shadows. The silent man doesn't live in reaction. He lives in command. So the next time you're insulted, challenged, lied to, say nothing, look them in the eye, and let silence do what words never could. If this video made you see the world differently, if it gave you an edge they won't see coming, then make your next move count. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, not for motivation, but for strategy. Because here we don't chase approval, we chase power. And every week I give you the tools to take it. So stay silent, stay sharp, and I'll see you in the shadows.